Hey guys, Dan here over Zoom with Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
This is a very special episode of Dan Reviews It. Usually we have you aboard for Disney reviews, on occasion, some other things. But I did the Queen's Gambit on my TV reviews last week, and even before talking to you, I knew that we would be able to do a big Queen's Gambit review because you had already been talking about it before I even had watched it.
Yeah.
And this was, I think you had finished it what in the course of 3 or 4 days, maybe.
I did it over 3 views.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you and I aren't usually super bingers where we'll watch 5, 6, 7 hours in a row. But a person could binge this in one day. I mean, it's 7 hours, one afternoon.
Honestly, if my schedule allowed me to, I probably would have binged it 1 or 2 days instead of three.
Yeah, I watched the first two episodes for the review show, and then once I talked to you and we realized, yes, we're going to do this, I watched episodes 3 through the first half of 6 all in one sitting, and then it was like 3 in the morning, so I went to bed. But yeah, if I wasn't that tired, I could have easily watched 6 and 7 in that same session as well. All right, so this is going to be, I guess we could do a little spoiler kind of stuff, but let's maybe save that towards the end. Why don't we just kind of talk about everything first?
I
What do you think?
wasn't planning on doing any spoilers. I wrote down a little synopsis of the thing without giving any spoilers.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we can at least talk at the end of this about how we felt about the ending of the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
And that maybe we could be a little spoilery, but if you haven't seen it yet, don't worry. We're not gonna do spoilers for the first good chunk of this. But like I said on my TV review last weekend, this is I said the word probably, but that seems silly now. The best thing that Netflix has put out in 2020. It's hands down that, and I think it may be one of the great Netflix programming things of all time. I don't know.
I was thinking about that. And I mean, I love Stranger Things. I would probably say that that's probably my favorite Netflix original that they've done. But that speaks to me as an 80s kid. Like it
Yeah,
it's so nostalgia for the 80s. It references so many 80s movies. I love the Goonies, and it feels almost just like the Goonies in different scenarios.
it's very Goonies-esque.
It balances the heart, and it also balances the horror and the laughs and everything like that. So that's really geared towards me. Another show that I really like is the Umbrella Academy, but that's very comic booky, and I like comic books. This is about chess. I know how to play chess. I don't know any strategy. I know how everything moves, and I could play a game of chess and probably lose or maybe win depending on someone's skill level. But they made chess interesting. So for me to be involved in a chess show, that speaks a lot to this show.
Yeah, I think you're right. That does definitely say something. I don't even know how to play chess. I've seen, some of the chess movies out there, but I don't play chess. I vaguely know some of the rules. But yeah, I mean, when I go over the list of like the great Netflix shows of all time, and all time is, relative. They've only been really making originals for like 6 years or something. But, I think about Grace and Frankie. I think about Orange is the New Black, but really only the first maybe 4 seasons of that. I think that.
I only watched probably the first three.
Yeah, it overstayed a bit for me. And then some of the ones, that have ended a little prematurely than I would have liked. Dead to Me, Santa Clarita Diet. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a standalone show, even Stranger Things, like we talked about, that's going into its 4th season. I mean, this is a mini series. It will not get a season 2. It's one and done. I mean, I liked Unbelievable a lot last year, but I think this is even better than that.
Yeah, Unbelievable was good, but this was more compelling.
Yeah, I agree. And let's talk about. I guess first we'll kind of well, you can, I guess, give us the synopsis. We'll do that first, the classic Tim synopsis, and then I think we can maybe talk about the things I touched on in my review and sort of expand on those, and then we can sort of go further and into more detail.
Okay. So Queen's Gambit is based off a book by Walter Thieves by the same name, Queen's Gambit. And it is about Beth Harmon. And she enters an orphanage at the age of 9, where she is introduced to the game of chess. She quickly masters the game and hones her skills on the professional circuit. However, her rising stardom comes with a price. Can she get control over her life and her vices at her most important matches draw closer?
And this covers a good, like, 15 years or so. I don't know if you have exact numbers, but we start, when that little girl plays her, Isla Johnston. She's, like you said, 9.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, how old is she at the end? I mean, it's in the late 60s.
I would say that she was probably in her mid-20s.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right, judging by everything that's going on. I mean, so yeah, we're looking at this for the bulk of, 15 to 18 maybe years of her life. And the reason I watched the second episode, I mentioned this in the TV review, is that Anya Taylor-Joy, the star of this, is barely even in the first episode, because we focus on the 9-year-old version, played by Isla Johnston, which I thought was very compelling as well.
Yes.
You and I know Anya Taylor-Joy from many things. I mentioned a couple of them on my show. I forgot that she was in The Witch. That was one of her big breakthroughs, I guess.
Yeah, I actually first saw The Witch. I was introduced to her in Split, which I really enjoyed her in.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of forget about The Witch because I don't think it's that good of a movie. But that horrible movie Morgan she was in, which was maybe a year before Split, right away I was like, who is this girl? This movie is terrible, but she is like impossible to not watch. Did you ever see that one?
I don't know. I saw a couple really bad horror movies, and I can't remember if that was one of them or not.
Yeah. Well, that was like a sci-fi movie. She was like, I don't really remember what happens, but she's trapped in a jail or something, and I forget. But Split really was her big, like, mainstream, like, big money maker debut, I would say. And very compelling in that. They brought her back in Glass for some reason, I guess because she's a good actress and people like her, but she's popped up in a few things since. You mentioned earlier off air you had not seen Emma yet, right?
I have not seen Emma. My wife has seen Emma, and she really enjoyed Emma, but
okay. Yeah, I thought Emma was good. And one thing that I think that's interesting about her, just from seeing interviews and stuff, is she has no real descript accent. She was born and raised in, I believe it was Argentina, and didn't start speaking English till she was about 9 or 10. But that's from the UK, and now I think she lives in America. So like she's been all over the place. So she doesn't have a specific accent, which I think really lends to her embodying these characters even more believably.
Yeah,
because she doesn't have to struggle so far to find an accent like some people. But I guess let's go maybe in order of what happens. Like, let's start with that first episode with the 9-year-old Beth, and we don't have to go episode by episode like some of the shows I do, but I think it's certainly 2 different eras of her life.
Yeah, so we see the grown-up adult Beth Harmon for 3 minutes, and it's basically a clip scene from a later episode, and you're just like, okay, what happened? And then all of a sudden we're transported to a 9-year-old girl standing on the side of the road, and then all of a sudden she's in an orphanage, and just kind of struggling with the loss of her mom and being in a new surrounding, and she's very shy and she's very introverted, and that's kind of how chess gets involved in her life, is that she doesn't really connect with many people at the orphanage, and cleans erasers in the basement, and that's where she meets I forget, I didn't even write his name down.
Yeah, Mr. Scheibel.
Yeah, the janitor, and or the maintenance guy, or whatever you want to call him, and just kind of watches him move the pieces. And the way her brain works is that then she can kind of figure out how things move and becomes kind of a good chess player without even being taught much by the janitor.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a prodigy, if nothing else. And so then, she starts doing these chess tournaments, but I guess that doesn't start until she gets adopted, right?
Yeah, that doesn't start until
like her teenage years.
The janitor introduces her to like the chess coach at the high school, and he has her play simultaneous games at the same time, and
wins all of them.
Like against these high school kids when she's 9. And the way she kind of practices chess is that at night she takes the medicine that she's supposed to be taking during the day, and then that allows her to see giant chess pieces on the ceiling and can kind of move them around in her head and kind of practice.
Yeah, it actually helps her mentally. And then they have the edict come down that they can't give kids these pills anymore. And so she ends up, breaking into the dispensary and stealing the entire jar of them, and getting in a lot of trouble that way.
And that's where her kind of addiction starts.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so then they forbid her from playing chess because of the overdose. And then in episode 2 here, we now see her getting adopted by the Wheatleys. Now, the woman that played her adopted mother, Alma, so that's Marielle Heller, which I recognized the name, but I was like, this woman's face doesn't seem familiar to me. So she directed that Melissa McCarthy movie that I freaking love, Can You Forgive Me? And she's directed a couple of things. She's had like a couple of acting gigs here or there, but
she also directed the Tom Hanks Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
That's right. Yeah, more recently she did that. So she's more known for that, but I thought she was great here.
Yeah.
I don't know why she hasn't acted more, or what led her down the path of directing over acting, but I thought she did a really good job. She really sank herself into the character. She apparently learned to play piano for the couple of scenes that she has with the piano, which I thought was pretty impressive.
And I guess that kind of speaks volumes to how well the script was, that she was willing to be like, okay, I'm going to take a major role in a TV series here. I mean, it's a limited series, but it's a major role opposed to other things that she's done, and it's kind of out of her wheelhouse as well, because she's a director. So the script has been pretty amazing, where she's like, okay, I really want to do this.
Well, yeah, and the acting job she has had, right, like you said, they haven't been series, it's been like a guest spot here or there. They haven't been, 7 episodes of anything. So, not that she was in all 7, but yeah, she obviously is going through some issues with the husband, and so she ends up raising Beth basically by herself. And they start sort of.
We can use the term raising kind of.
Well, all right.
Because
in a legal sense, I guess.
Really wanted a kid, but I guess she also kind of didn't want a kid, and Beth kind of needs a mom because she's missing her mother figure in her life. So it kind of works out, but it definitely is a weird relationship between the two.
Yeah. Well, and right, in many cases, it comes down to like how much money they can make at X, Y, and Z chess event versus okay, we're going to pull you out of school for 2 weeks to go make this trip and whatever. Yes, you're right. I'm not. Raising is probably too strong a word.
Yeah,
But
their
she's
dynamic,
there at least.
their dynamic is very weird, but it's also very engaging, and it seems like they need each other, but they don't know how to really kind of fit each other's, like, what each other needs. Like,
Well, and it doesn't seem, certainly for Beth, but it also doesn't seem that the adopted mother, either of them have ever really experienced real love from anybody.
yeah,
So they don't quite know how to process that or what that looks like, and we'll see that a little bit later in the series, when Beth eventually starts meeting men and all of this.
yeah,
Which, yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with it too, that they're both sort of so laser focused on a means to an end that they're not really, I don't want to say that they're not really like people, because they're sort of devoid of emotions, but yet the characterization is so great for both of them. So I don't want to say that they're not, good characters, because they really, really are, but they are both devoid of a lot of human emotion.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure exactly why the mom is that way. I guess it's just because of the relationships she's been in and some losses that she had. But like, the way Beth acts, and I feel like she just kind of sees things in her mind that she doesn't really know how to interact like a normal person. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to say that she has uh, that she's on the spectrum or anything, but um, it sometimes that seems like she could be.
Well, I just think she's had no real care in her life,
Yeah,
and I mean, my family took in fosters for most of my childhood, and there was sort of, now some of them did have actual, mental issues, but there was a strong layer of, like, sort of standoffishness, emotionlessness, and some of that is because you want to build a wall up so you don't get hurt, and I think that's partially what happened here in Beth's case too, and that's why she sort of took to the pills to sort of alleviate some of that pain, I guess.
yeah, but I mean, sometimes it's just how like prodigies and child geniuses and people with high intellects are, is that they have such a high IQ, and they just don't have the social awareness as well. Kind of like
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Sheldon Cooper and like Big Bang, where like
Right.
he's not good at interacting with people. I mean, she's nowhere close to annoying as Sheldon Cooper, but
Yes.
definitely very direct sometimes. And she's never had people to teach her um, certain things, like what happens to her as she grows up as a woman and things like that.
Yeah, right. In one of the season two or episode two matches, right, she starts getting her period. She's like, I don't know what's going on, and the girl in the bathroom tries to help her, but she's too embarrassed to even, admit whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was a very good scene, and yeah, I mean, she does make that one friend at the orphanage who ends up appearing later on in the series, but
Jolene.
um, Jolene. But really, you're right. That's about it. I mean, her interaction is pretty minimal from what we see.
Yeah.
All right, so let's I guess we could stick with the characterization, I guess, um, but one of the things that struck me is the set design, the time period stuff. There is such an attention to detail here that we see often, in big budget period piece movies, maybe, but for a TV show, I don't think we see it that much, down to the patterns of the dresses and the curtains and the the dishware, you know, at the orphanage or at the foster home. I mean, there's so much attention to detail in this show.
Yeah, the department store that they go shopping at was a real department store in the 50s and 60s, and like they kind of like rebuilt it.
Yeah, like redesigned it. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, spot on. I thought that was great. The language that everyone is using is very, you know, appropriate to the time. You know, just everything about from, you know, the dresses down the line is just, you know, brilliant. And one thing I learned, I didn't do too much like digging into the show, but I watched a couple of interviews, one with Anya Taylor-Joy and one with the dude who did most of the like the set decoration, you know, he worked with the makeup team and that sort of thing. And you know, one thing he mentioned is that the lipstick shades that were used in, you know, throughout the series were very, very deliberate, and it's not something that people would really pick up on, but subconsciously it sort of makes us realize in her maturity like where she is. And one of the things he pointed out was in the very last episode, the lipstick that Beth is wearing is the exact same shade that the adopted mother wore when she was coming up, to sort of like show that maybe, you know, the personality traits had sort of you know, gone that same way. And I thought that was just, I mean, that's not something I would certainly have picked up on, but I think it kind of falls in line with the attention to detail that this show provides.
Yeah, like you don't see that on other Netflix shows like the I don't know, the Warrior Nun or that Cursed show.
Yes,
like that.
or Outer Banks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that, you know, when I think of things like that, I think of you know, Oscar type movies that really go the distance with things like that, like Hidden Figures or something.
Yeah, or like not the lipstick shades or something like that, but definitely like shows that like two or three people that had their hands in the whole thing, like maybe the first season of Lost or something like that, where like
right,
everything was like pre-planned and they thought things out, and then the studios got involved and were like, you make this 10
messed everything up.
Really make it 10 seasons. But things like that, like, or other like the first couple seasons of Games of Thrones where everything was very meticulous and things like that.
Yeah, it really is something you rarely see on television, except for those few examples.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things was, like you mentioned, this was a book first, and so Anya Taylor-Joy was sent this book. She gave an interview, I think it was for Rotten Tomatoes, but she basically like devoured this book in a day or two and was like, I empathize with this character. I see a lot of myself in her. And so she basically, you know, sort of became this woman, so much so that she would do things that were not in the script. And some of them actually were in the book that they didn't put in the script that she still put in there. And some she just decided in the spur of the moment to just do because she felt so comfortable knowing this character. But one of the things she mentions in the interview that they did in the book that was not in the script was in episode, I want to say maybe 4, where she meets the sort of the next prodigy and she plays him, where she's like getting up from each one of her moves and kind of, you know, being intimidating to him. That was in the book, but they didn't have it in the script. She just did it in the moment, and she didn't even tell the kid that she was going to do that. So when you see his sort of like confused look or whatever, that was all her basically, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about her performance a little bit because
okay. Yeah, let's. Yeah, obviously, like I said, she's really throwing herself in here.
She plays Beth from the age, I don't know, 14, 15-ish. When she gets adopted, the person says that she's 13, but obviously she was about to say a different age. So you're not sure exactly how old she was going to say.
Yeah. But
But
she hadn't had her first period yet. So to me, I'm not sure
I
how
mean,
old she really was.
some girls have it late.
Yeah, this is true.
So that's why I'm saying somewhere around there, 14,
Yeah.
15. And then she plays her to her to her mid/early 20s.
Yeah.
And so she portrays this girl that's going through puberty and growing up and maturing, and she does it so well that like Anya Taylor-Joy does not look like she's 13, 14, 15.
No.
So for the first second when she gets out of bed in that second episode, it's a little jarring, but then she just kind of embodies this shy little timid girl that you start buying into it, and then you see her grow up, but it's the same age girl. I mean, like, they can do stuff with makeup and stuff like that, but the way she portrays her character from certain ages as she's growing up is just astounding.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the way she handles herself. And yeah, like you said, I mean, we've seen her now in a couple of movies in the last few years where obviously she's playing somebody that's typically like maybe college aged or whatever. And here, right, she runs the gamut for about 12 years. And, yeah, you can change the hairstyle, you can, add makeup or whatever, but a lot of this is her channeling where Beth is in that moment in time, and she really sells it. She pulls it off so well. I mean, this is I think a career making performance. I think this is one of these performances that um, 20, 30 years from now, if she's still in the business, people will point to Queen's Gambit and say, yes, this is where she really, this was her star making turn.
Yeah.
I can't agree more with that.
So over the course of the series, she has 3 guys that start off as competitors in the chess world, and then some become romantic interests along the way. And those 3 the characters are Harry Bellick, Benny Watts, and Towns.
Yes. And Benny
Harry
Watts
Bellick,
we've seen before because he was on The Maze Runner.
Benny Watts is played by Thomas Brody Sangster. He was in The Maze Runner, and then you might also recognize him as the little boy in Love Actually.
Right.
Who wants to play the drums. He was
Very
also
little.
like
He was in like a season of Game of Thrones, right?
In a season of Game of Thrones as well. Yep. And so you will recognize him from that, and he does a really good job as kind of this wild chess guy that gives Beth a run for her money at one point, and then kind of see how she grows and kind of one-ups him as well. And they play speed chess a lot against each other, and that is just visually stunning to watch, the way that they do that.
Yeah, it's very cool. And actually, speaking of, just before we get back to the guys, the chess games themselves, I love how, since she's just sort of starting out in the tournaments, that first tournament she goes to, they put her with the women, and the gal she's facing against basically gives her the rundown of like, okay, here's this rule, this is what this means. And really, it was for Beth to know what's going on, but I loved how they did that because obviously I didn't know, how any of that worked. And so it was a little slick way to kind of fill us in quickly, and to let Beth know as well. So I like the way they did that.
Yeah. So the other guy, Harry Bellick, he's played by Harry Melling.
Dudley.
I didn't recognize him, but
I didn't either.
I looked him up, and he's in the Harry Potter movies.
Yep, good old Dudley Dursley.
He played Dudley, and I was like, he does not look anything like him. And then I read about him, and for the last Harry Potter movie that he had to do, he actually had to wear a lot of prosthetics because he lost most of that weight between the things. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't recognize him at all.
Yeah, I sort of like when I saw him come up, I was like, I feel like I know this dude, but I looked at the name, I'm like, I don't know this dude. And then I looked more into it. I was like, holy cow, that's Dudley.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks way different, but you know, another good performance from him.
Yeah. And he starts out as kind of like this annoying character that's going against Beth, but then he definitely evolves and shows that he cares for her, and even when she doesn't even know what she wants, and her life's spiraling out of control, like he's definitely there for her. And then Towns, I looked at his stuff and I didn't recognize anything, but he's played by
a lot of BBC stuff.
Yeah, Jacob Fortune Lloyd, and once again, outstanding performance from him as well. And they have like this will they won't they kind of relationship throughout the show.
Well, and even though they all start out like as, you know, competitors that they, you know, turn into friends, like they all serve a very specific purpose in her life.
Yeah.
As they sort of float in and out. Who was your favorite, you think, of the three? Like as a character, I guess, not just as performances.
I mean, like for that, like the three different guys, I like they are so not one dimensional. Like
right.
That at first you think they are, but then there's so much more to them that it's kind of hard to pick. I don't know.
I think Harry's probably my favorite.
He does have the biggest heart out of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't know. I feel like I feel the worst for him.
Yeah.
Out of, you know, with everything that happens, which we're not going to talk about necessarily, but yeah, I think I would say he's probably my favorite of the three.
Yeah. I do like Benny for some reason as well. Like I feel
Benny's good too.
He starts out as super cocky, and you're like, oh my god, who is this guy? But then you're like, oh wow, he has more to him than meets the eye.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer to the question. Yeah. I mean, even if somebody said Towns, you know, I think you could present a case for that too.
And all three of them have great chemistry with Anya Taylor-Joy as character, and each one of those chemistries is unique. So I think that's why it stands up.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So.
Say the addiction. We haven't really talked much about the addiction yet.
Yeah. So she has pills addictions and later alcohol addiction, and sometimes both. And she definitely uses it to kind of cope with her life and
everything. Yeah.
And it kind of allows her to get in a certain mindset to play chess as good as she does. So it's kind of a crutch for her sometimes.
Yeah, and that comes up certainly in some of the later episodes when people are realizing around her what's going on, and you know, and I think the pressure of no longer being, I forget what episode it is, maybe 5 or something, where somebody specifically says like, well, you're too old to be a prodigy, and I think that sort of passing of the torch really does not go well for her. You know, I think it helps the whole spiral thing, because she was, you know, so famous so quickly, so young, that once she realizes, well, I can't be getting off, you know, by my age anymore, that obviously affects her a lot.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, you know, even though this is a fictitious story, I feel like this is all exactly how it would really go down for people in this situation.
it's so realistic that I had to look it up to see if this was a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, I was like, okay. I found out it was based off a book, and I was like, is that book based off something? Right? Because
Right.
it's so realistic and so true
What?
to.
And some of the final matches that we see in at least the last episode, maybe the last couple episodes, some of them are based on, at least like the moves that are played are based on, like Bobby Fischer, a Bobby Fischer performance, or a Boris, I forget the guy's name, that big Russian chess guy from the 70s. So, they're the attention to detail of that down to like the exact moves that are being played, makes it that much more realistic, even though it is a completely fictitious story.
Yeah, and I saw people from the chess community like really applaud this show for having boards set up in realistic ways and people doing moves, opposed to other shows or that have chess involved, or have like an episode where chess involved or something like that, where like there's like
Yeah.
pieces on a board and people can move them, but everything's realistic, and they were the attention to details very on par for chess.
Yeah, and the fact that in some of those, like especially the earlier competitions where she's playing, multiple people at once, sometimes you'll see like a camera sort of pan over a handful of tables at the same time, and every chessboard was set up in a completely unique way that I'm sure, like you said, people in the chess community could look at and be like, oh, okay, that's a real board. Here's how this move would go. Yeah, I thought that was another great attention to detail.
Yeah. So the way they make the chess playing in tournaments super compelling to watch is they do a bunch of different things. They have the giant chess pieces on the ceiling at time. And the visuals of that is amazing. It's
Yeah,
like
it was a really, really cool technique.
it's not TV quality visuals there. It's like it's movie themed visuals there.
Yeah.
And then also like then you also have they don't rely on that every single time that they're doing something. So I give them that. They have different methods of doing things. Like they have like her visualizing like just all the pieces moving really quickly in different scenarios and things like that. And I think they have like the turn trackers of like these big boards, where like some guy just moves the piece from here to here so everybody can kind of see. And didn't they do that as well in that thing where like they just had them moving really quickly or something like that? So they had a bunch of different techniques, and they were all visually amazing to watch. But then also, even if they weren't doing those, just the performance of Anya Taylor-Joy, like how like when she had an easy match, she was just not even like really even looking at the board and just picking the piece and moving it and then jotting it down on a little piece of paper. And it was like, and then like when she had a harder match and she was kind of out of her league, like the stress that she had was just like you felt that stress.
Yeah, and to go back, I guess a minute to talk about her performance again. She, in those like matches where like you said, you and I don't really know much about chess. You know how to play, but to not really know which way the match is going, but for her to be able to convey it with sort of just how she's looking, or you can, like you said, you kind of feel that stress. You can tell immediately if she feels like she's a little bit out of her depth, or she's a little worried that maybe she won't make the move, even though sometimes they're not even showing us the board, they're just showing us her face. And the way she conveys that is just brilliant with just a look.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. So you did mention that this is a limited series. But I did like there's a lot of talks like, is this going to be renewed? Is it going to be another one?
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything where like Netflix is willing to do it, but I have seen an interview where Anya Taylor-Joy said that she would be up for it.
Huh.
Then it made me think, um, I would be up for it as well. I don't know because the ending is perfect.
Yeah,
The ending,
right. Yeah, the
the
ending is
ending
perfect.
is perfect. This
We'll talk
limited
about that
series,
in detail, but
but I want to see her more. Like I don't know how they would do it or what they would really like
yeah, like
invest,
I'm not sure what it would focus on
what they
other
would
than
focus or
her
explore,
life, but
but yeah, something about our life. But if it
huh.
gave me more adventures of that department, I would
They're
be
all in.
yes.
Wow. Okay.
Would
That's
you
interesting.
want a
I
second?
Well, okay. The good news is with that is that I feel like she respects this character and this material so much that I think even if she's saying, yes, I would consider it, I think she would only do it if the script
Yeah,
and the situations were as compelling as this, you know. And I don't know. I'm gonna look up quick here if this guy that wrote the book, if he's still alive. Oh, he died in 1984. He died a year after the book came out.
yeah.
Oh, hey, here's one. He also wrote The Hustler and The Color of Money.
Oh,
So there you go. So this was not his first foray into the filmed realm of one of his series,
yeah.
um, but all right. Well, he's dead, so obviously he's not going to be able to write, an updated version.
Okay.
But yeah, I would guess if she had the right script, maybe she would do it. But
And
uh,
I think it
boy,
would. I think it would also would be like you would need Scott Frank, the director and writer, back to do it, and if he would be willing to do it,
yeah,
because
he really brought this thing to life for sure.
because you mentioned in your other video that he wrote Logan, um, but he also directed, and I think he also wrote maybe The Lookout, which is this Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
was Jeff Bridges in that?
I'm not sure,
All
but
right, I don't remember.
that
That was my
I remember
Hollywood
that
video
in theaters.
days.
I remember seeing that in theaters and really liking that movie.
Okay, God, that's a while ago.
Yeah, that was a while
Yeah,
ago.
that was when I
Uh,
was in Hollywood video. Oh, not Jeff Bridges, Jeff Daniels.
oh yeah, Jeff Daniels was in it.
That's
Uh,
right. Yeah, Isla Fisher was in it. Okay, that was a great movie.
yeah, and then one of the other writers on this, or executive producers, I guess he wrote some as well, was Scott Allen, who he wrote The Witches.
The New Witches.
No, not the New Witches.
Oh, the Good Witches.
The Good Witches.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. All right. So he's been around the block as well then.
yeah. But
Yeah, Good Witches wasn't
um,
good.
yeah, Scott Frank. He also wrote and directed another thing on Netflix called Godless, which was a western like in 2017, which I never watched, but apparently it has really good reviews. But it was another limited, I don't know if it was a limited series, but it was one season and done.
Huh. Okay. I feel like I've maybe heard of that, but yeah, I certainly haven't seen it.
Yeah,
All right.
but
Well, that's interesting then.
yeah. Well,
How about the score of this too? Before we get to the ending, and we'll talk about spoilers, I guess, in there. But how about the score of this by Carlos Riviera? Just fantastic, I thought.
yeah. For
Like it's
me and
not too in your face.
yeah, you know me, music. Music isn't the one thing that like really draws me in. It's usually if the music doesn't go with it, if it's too jarring or something like that, then I notice it
That
more.
sticks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it sticks out, then I notice
Well,
it.
and that's what I think this did so well is that it. I mean, and I am a music guy. It didn't stick out at all because it was it perfectly complemented the scenes and really set the tone. And I really think that's what good scores do. I think the best scores you might notice because they're so great, but that's, I think, the exception rather than the rule. I think mostly you notice scores when they don't really match up what's happening.
Yeah, or if like you have like we were talking about John Williams the other day, but like they're so recognizable and like they're
right.
so hooky that like you're like, oh, that's Star Wars,
That's
or
this
that's
person,
E.T., or that's like. But then we were also talking about other movies that he did scores for, and we were like, oh wait, he did that one, and he did that one, and he did that one. It was like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, a ton of things we just did not realize at all.
Yeah, so and that's what makes him a great composer, is that he doesn't need like that standout Star Wars credit roll
Right.
for every movie.
Yeah, it can be a little more subdued and just sort of fit with what's happening. And I think that's what they did here. There every so often I would pick something out. It was usually during the chess matches when there wasn't really any dialogue. It was either like a chess match montage or something like that. But it really sort of set the pace of the action of the game. And that's something I appreciated as well.
Yeah, and this is also a type of a series that you don't want something that is standoutish.
Right.
Like you don't want that Star Wars scroll music to come
right.
up. Like, okay.
Yeah, you definitely want something a little more subtle here.
Yeah.
And this guy has not done a lot of scoring work, although he did do Godless. So obviously he's worked with that dude before. But the only other thing I recognize that he did was Walk Among the Tombstones with Liam Neeson, which don't really remember much about that.
Well, that was one of the other movies that the Scott Frank guy. I didn't mention that one.
Oh, okay. So they're
yeah,
collab partners.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the final episode. This is kind of going to be our spoilery part of the review. So if you haven't seen Queen's Gambit yet, this is the part you want to kind of tune out for. But it's called Endgame.
In Queen's Gambit yet. Stop the video.
Yes, this is it now.
7 episodes
and come back.
and talk. Listen to how we thought.
Yes, and I mean I don't think we have to go into too much detail about what happens, but I mean basically she's facing this enormously good opponent, this guy Borgov, who and I think this might be the episode 2 where they go back to the orphanage at the beginning of it. That's either in 6 or 7.
6 or 7.
It's towards the end though, for sure.
Yeah, I think it is actually this episode, because
okay. So yeah, Jolene comes back.
I think Jolene comes back the last bit of episode
6. I think you might be right on that. And then they ended the credits. Yeah. So yeah, they go back to the orphanage, and I love that they they go sort of visit Mr. Shable's old office and stuff, and we see all the newspaper clippings about Beth and everything, and she realizes in that moment, like, oh, I didn't even know it, but I had he was behind me ever since the word go, and that was a very touching scene, I thought.
Yeah, and like it was the first time that you see her like have emotions in this.
Yeah, it really is.
Like you see it like a little bit here and there, but you actually see her break down, and that's kind of what gets her life back on track of being mentally prepared to go against this Soviet world chess champion who she's lost to. I think twice she already lost to him, right?
Yeah, definitely in 6 she lost to him, and I think maybe once before that too.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was both in episode 6. They all run together, but yeah, so basically the whole reason this is called Queen's Gambit is because she does the Queen's Gambit play in that final game. And how did you feel sort of about the idea of it being a draw, and then sort of the possibilities of that? And do you think she made the right choice in that moment?
I think she made the right choice because, I mean, the even though if she like the Soviet guy offers a draw and he's never ever done that, like that would have been a victory in itself. But
Right.
I think for just for her, I think, and us as a viewer, I don't think we would want that.
Yeah, I was wondering what she was gonna do, but I love that they had the commentator say that one line that where we're like, okay, this is the first time he's offering a draw. You know, he hates to lose, so this is historic. And then I think it's the other commentator that's like, yeah, but Beth Harmon loves to win, so we'll see what she does. And it really is sort of a nice cap to her character because, yeah, I mean, she could have taken the draw. And like you said, I think it would have been a win enough because he's never offered that before, and everything ends amicably. Her life sort of, the pieces are falling back into place, but yet she was like, "Nah, like I'm gonna see this through." Even though I think it was, I think she didn't know that she was going to for sure win.
No,
I think she really, in that moment, thought she had a good chance of losing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that makes it more important that she didn't take the draw. But I don't know. I don't think I would have faulted her if she did.
No.
I don't think it would have made it any less compelling. I would feel like maybe that's realistic. But I thought it was interesting the way, and I guess this is how it would be in a normal chess match, but that they had him put his move in an envelope and seal it so that he couldn't think about the moves anymore and she didn't know what he was going to do. I thought that was cool. They added that in there because as a viewer that doesn't watch chess, that was really neat.
Well,
to see how they do that.
They kind of set that up when she was playing that the new prodigy from before. Because
that's right. She did that. You're right. She did that a few episodes before.
Well, she had to do her move. That
right.
was because they did a adjournment before, and so if they hadn't done that prior, I would have what are they doing? They're taking a break.
Yeah.
I mean, and they also reset that up in this episode as well, because she was playing a different guy as well. I guess that's how tournaments go. And in my mind, I'm just I thought they have a clock, and the clock kind of keeps them going. How can they be playing chess so long that they need a break? I still don't get it, but
yeah, they throw around a lot of numbers in this in terms of how many moves you can make in what length of time and this and that. And that part was a little confusing to me, but I'm sure if I knew anything about chess, it would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So I can't fault them for that, but okay. So at the end of it, I mean, what do you think?
Well,
do you think she returns to America at the end of this show?
What do you think she should have?
Do you think she does? I mean, after the credits roll.
I think she does.
Okay, I kind of think she does too.
Yeah, I just think she needed to kind of experience the Soviet Union, Russia on her own terms, because prior to that she was kind of on lockdown with her export and stuff like that, and she really wanted to kind of see that famous spot where people play chess in Russia, on the street, and kind of that's how it ends. But I think it's also the perfect ending because it kind of
it really is. I really hope they don't do a second one, Tim. I know you're aching for it.
Well, no, I mean, if they do one, I'm fine with it. But
it's gotta be good though.
It's the perfect ending, but also it just speaks volumes to her character that I know it's the perfect ending, but I want more of this character. It's
Right.
like, yeah.
It's Toy Story 3 all over again, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending for this, but I watched Toy Story 4 because
it was also great.
It's also great. So I mean,
Yeah.
like there is ways. I mean,
You could do it.
It
couldn't revolve really, I don't think, around chess anymore though, unless she became then the chess teacher or whatever, and teaching a new prodigy or something like that. But then that also seems kind of generic. I don't know. So
I mean,
Hollywood writer.
Like, I mean, they do it all the time. I mean, Creed 2, like,
you're right.
He gets his title taken away from him, and he has to kind of get it back.
Yeah, you're right.
So they could do something like that, but also exploring other parts of her life. But the one thing I did like about the final episode is like the fans that were like coming out in Russia, how they were getting kind of like more and more like in volumes, and like that one, like her handler was like, what's going on? I kind of like felt like that was kind of like me for like the series, where like I wasn't even sure if I was going to watch it. I was like, okay. I kind of just got more and more invested in it. Kind of get like, it was just like, okay, yeah, now I'm a fan of Beth Harmon and chess, apparently.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's funny. What compelled you to watch this? Because you watched it even before I did.
I saw it was in the top 10, that whole top 10 thing.
I always look at the top 10.
And like usually I just kind of like click on them, and then they have like the little trailer that they do on there. And the trailer that they did for it was when she was signing up for her first tournament, the whole interactions with her, and like the two guys, the two guys that become eventually her friends, like it's very compelling, and her acting is really good. And I was like, oh, this could be interesting, because you see a show about chess, you're like, okay,
right.
So I watched.
Well, that's the thing. Like, now that I do the TV reviews show, and I really purposely started it so I could make myself watch all these things that maybe I wouldn't have seen, that might have fallen through the cracks. So I would have watched it for that regardless. But I wonder, were I not doing that show, if somebody said to me like, oh yeah, the girl from Split's doing a show about chess, it's like really good, you should watch it, I think I'd be like, I don't know. Because it doesn't sound that compelling. And like I said, I've seen chess movies before, like Queen of Cotsway was good, and Pawn Sacrifice was okay, but I don't usually seek out things about chess. But man, this was such a freaking like hidden gem, home run. People knew right away. It was in the top 2 or 3 like right away. It's still number 1 3 weeks after the fact, which never happens.
I mean, it's weird, because I feel like so many people are still kind of living the life of quarantine, even though not everybody's on lockdown. That every Friday when something new comes out, like it just goes up. It always goes.
That's true.
It always goes in the top 10, and then people see it there and they click on it, and then they watch it, and it's just like anytime something new comes on, even if it's an older show and it's new to Netflix, it's always in the top 10.
It's usually up there. Yeah, that's true. Like that not John Wick, but the Keanu Reeves movie, Knock Knock, was in the top 10 last week.
But I mean, if it's not good, it doesn't stay there.
Right. Yes, it was only in the top 10 for a few days. This is still number 1 3 weeks later, which, I mean, that never. A Tiger King, I think, is the last thing that was number 1 for multiple weeks. More than 2.
And the thing that dethroned it was them getting Despicable Me, the original Despicable
Oh,
Me,
that's right.
like on Netflix. You're like, oh, that's what dethrones Tiger King.
Yeah, that makes sense for kids.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Well, so let's see.
it
Is
does
there
speak
anything else you
volumes.
want to talk about?
Oh well, I do have it that that the locations are very well done. I mean, there's a lot of traveling in this movie. We mentioned that she goes through the Soviet Union, but she also goes to Mexico City and she also goes to Paris, and they are
Yeah.
outside. So you see these amazing cities, but they're also set in the 1960s. So like
Yeah.
also,
Were they on location? Did you look that up?
I don't know if they were on location, but I mean they did a good job of portraying these cities in those times.
Yeah.
However, they did.
It looks like they only filmed in Ontario and Berlin, and that's it. So they created all of that, I guess. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they would almost have to, though, because like you said, you know, to be in Paris in the 60s, that's a very specific look. And you can't really just go to Paris in 2019 and film on location without really doing a lot of, you know, overhauls to the landscape and the cars on the street and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, they could probably take a block of like the older district of Paris and like maybe
rope it off.
I've never been to Paris either, but there's something there that still looks pretty old, and just kind of use that as like a scene or something like that. But most of it's. I'm going to talk about Lost again for some, but I remember watching how they did stuff on Lost of how they only filmed in Hawaii, but they made different
all this with the flashback.
They made like England and Saudi Arabia and China and all these different locations, and they're like, okay, but they would find a certain thing, make it look like it, because it looked very Englandish. And
yeah, it's wild how well certain shows can pull that off.
Yeah,
not every show, but
no,
but ones like these that really you know, are focused on the small details.
Yeah, but the fact that they only filmed in those locations and they made it look like Paris in the 60s and Mexico City in the 60s and make it believable. I mean,
yeah,
I wasn't alive in Paris in the 60s or Mexico City in the 60s, but they made it look like how I would envision it.
Yeah, you felt like you were there, Tom.
I felt like I was there.
Yeah, as did I. Yeah, and the way that the chess you know, went on the ceiling, like you mentioned earlier, like that was very, very cool to look at. Like everything in this show is interesting to look at, even if it's a scene where two people are talking, it's interesting to look at. You know, if it's a scene where they're just showing the chessboard, it's interesting to look at. They left really no stone unturned with that. I didn't think.
No.
All right, well that's I mean, I think that's all I have. We've talked about this show for a long time, but we got to give it a grade. And I mentioned on my show that, you know, I don't generally give A pluses out, mostly because I'm only watching the first episode or two usually on the TV review show. I think I maybe did give Undone an A plus last year on Amazon. But for me, I mean, I literally can't think of any flaws about this. I mean, no. and I love that it's 7 episodes, because I feel like if it was, you know, maybe 8 or more, you know, they might have been stretching a little bit. I think 5 or 6 would have been too few to get the whole story out there. I like that they gave it exactly 7 because I think that was just the right amount of time. You know, maybe we could have explored the characters more, but I feel like they were all so developed. You know, what more did we need?
I don't think we needed anything else.
Yeah. So for me, this is an A plus, Tim. What about you?
It's definitely an A+.
Yeah, I think I really, I'm not into Stranger Things quite as much as you, but I really think this might be, certainly for a limited series anyway. It's got to be the best thing Netflix has put out.
For a limited series, I will say it's the best thing. I put it on par with Stranger Things. I binge watched the whole first season of Stranger Things when I started at 11 o'clock at night, and I couldn't stop watching it.
Wow, and that was what, 8 episodes, 10 episodes,
Something like
a lot.
that.
You were the sun was coming up when you were finished.
I know, yeah. But
Yeah.
I feel like I would have done a similar thing for this if I didn't have to be. I think I had off the next day, so I was like, okay. I can do this. But I mean, I picked the day that I was working the next day for this. But I definitely probably would have watched all of it.
But you didn't know how great it was going to be.
No, and that's the thing is like, oh, I'm gonna start this at 10 o'clock at night and watch 2 episodes and be like,
right.
Oh, I wish I started it earlier.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tim, thank you for joining me. This was a great discussion about a great show. Next time we'll see you will be the Disney documentary about the African lion.
That is correct.
And that will be our next one. And then we have a few more after that. But yeah, thank you for joining me. This was a great discussion. And I guess we'll see everybody next time. Bye.